softness, to me anyway, is where creativity begins. It's what happens when we set down our armor and even just for a moment and allow something real to emerge. Let's carry that spirit into our next part of the morning as we hear from someone who's been building a business and a life rooted in that same gentle strength. Our speaker today knows a thing or two about leading with heart. Breanna Decker-Grant, or Bree, is the founder of Juniper Lane, a vintage clothing boutique, and Atlas and Amber, which is where you're sitting right now. After building a career in the wedding industry, first as a planner, then as a business owner, Breanna returned to her hometown of Stanton to create something truly one of a kind. She saw a gap in the market for sustainable vintage bridal fashion and built a destination that celebrates individuality, artistry, and care. As a Gen Z entrepreneur, Bree has never let age stand in the way of her vision. She's also one of the founders of Valley Women's Collab and continues to blend business with community in everything she does, which I feel like this morning is a really good representation of. This morning, she'll share her journey of returning home, building a business from a place of softness, and what it means to lead with authenticity, courage, and connection rather than hustle alone. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Breanna Decker-Grant.
Well, hi guys. I'm so excited to be here with you guys today, and thank you for that very warm and soft introduction. As she said, my name is Breanna, and I did grow up here in Stanton. My entire childhood was here, and by the time I graduated high school, I could not wait to leave and get out of here, which I'm sure is a story for lots of you. But I left and moved to Lynchburg and then to Charlottesville, and I was really keen on just building a new life there, a new community, and not looking back to here. And obviously, my life turned, and there's different plans because here I am. But I'm so grateful to be back here and building community with you guys. But when I graduated college and moved to Charlottesville at the age of 20, I started my entrepreneurial journey as a wedding planner, and that was my first business venture. And if you guys are familiar with the Charlottesville area, especially the wedding scene, it is very prestigious, a little bit cutthroat, and I definitely did not approach that season of life from a place of softness. So I was additionally working 40 hours a week at a retail and merchandising job, and then doing wedding planning on the side, and everything I did was, like I said, not from a place of softness, just hustling, grinding, who can I step on or who can I use to get ahead and really make a name for myself. And I guess that kind of worked in a way because I was poached by a wedding venue over there to stop wedding planning and to start working for them. So I thought it was my dream job. I was like, this is so great. I can work for one of these really cool wedding venues, really make a difference. But their caveat was that if I started working for them, I had to give up my own business and any side creative ventures. So as we kind of touched on this morning, we believe that softness kind of flows from creativity and vice versa. But at the time, that wasn't on my radar. I was like, this is great, more money, more prestige, I'm really making a name for myself. And that led to ultimate burnout like I've never experienced before. I'd only worked there for about 2 months, and then it was Christmas break, like between Christmas and New Year's, and that was the 1 week of PTO I got off all year at that job. And I came back to Stanton for the first time to visit my family, who was still here, and they could tell I was in a really rough place. And they were like, what is going on? This is not okay. And I just kind of had a all-time low moment where I was like, I don't know what to do next, but there has to be something else out there. So as I was just exploring the downtown, I realized a business had gone out of business and they were liquidating their inventory. And that is what Juniper Lane is now. And I was like, well, I know a little bit about retail. I know about clothes and thrifting because I love that. And even though this is scary, it can't be worse than what I'm doing now because I literally hate my life every single day. I toured what is Juniper Lane on December 28th, and I signed the lease and took over that business on January 2nd, and I did not look back. So, but enough about me. I want to add some takeaways into this for you guys so you can kind of, infuse what applies to you in this story. So my first takeaway is that you do not have to leave your roots to do meaningful work. So I feel like so often we kind of put another spot on a pedestal, whether that's like a bigger city or a better opportunity. But sometimes the best opportunities come from already building on what you know in a place that you know, in a place that shaped you. So don't fall for the lie that you have to leave your roots to do something bigger or better. And then a second part of that story for me is I wouldn't have taken the leap if I wasn't in such a place of discomfort. So discomfort often pushes us towards what we know deep down that we're meant to do. Like, I always knew I had a calling for entrepreneurship, and intuitively I was like, I'm meant for something different than just the 9-to-5 and grinding and hustling, but I wouldn't have taken the leap if I wasn't in a place of discomfort. So if you find yourself as well in a place of discomfort this morning, ask how you can use that as almost like a catalyst to follow that intuitive nudge that you know is there. But as we sit in the bridal salon today, as we mentioned, this hasn't always been here. This didn't happen overnight. I just opened it a couple months ago in July, which is very exciting. And it started as one rack of dresses in the back of Juniper Lane. So as I was touring that space originally, if any of you have been in the spot, kind of back in the kitchen area, there was like one rack of vintage dresses just like shoved in the back of this neglected store. And as soon as I saw it, especially with my background in weddings, I saw the vision immediately. So I feel like so much of this is just years of that vision and that consistency. But when I stepped into this new season of life, I determined to do it from a place of what we're going to call today softness, of approaching it with authenticity, with compassion, with putting community first instead of the grind and the hustle that so often our culture and our society tells us to do. Especially, you know, if you listen to a business podcast or whatever, it's like ways to 10x fast and all this stuff, which, you know, we have to make money as entrepreneurs, and we know sometimes that's hard. But giving ourselves that grace to not feel like we have to always be leveling up to the next and the next, and when can we just be content with things? So that was my approach as I stepped into this next season, was just taking it in stride and with softness. And another takeaway for you guys is our big wins that we, you know, see and celebrate for others or for ourselves, they're built on layers of consistency that is often not seen. So if you feel like you're in a season now of just constantly putting in the work, even if it is from a place of softness and grace, but you don't feel like you've made it yet, think of the iceberg effect. I'm sure you guys may be familiar with this analogy where like 10% of the iceberg is above the water and 90% is under. So it's just that vision, that hard work showing up every day is growing you there often, and that comes not from starting over, but just deepening your work and showing up with new commitment every single day. But as we also mentioned at the beginning of this, I started my first business when I was 20 and opened Juniper Lane at 26, which is kind of the elephant in the room. I know I'm pretty young to be doing things like this. And before too, that really led into that grind and that kind of like negative approach and that hardness that I put up, especially in the Charlottesville wedding market, because so often different vendors or different, you know, parents of the couples I were working with would make backhanded comments about how old are you and like all this stuff. And then even when I moved back here, unfortunately, some other colleagues or stuff like that were like, oh, did your parents fund this, or is someone else, you know, where's your dad or your husband, like indirectly those types of comments. So if there are other Gen Z entrepreneurs in the room, I want to encourage you that don't let that harden you. If you do get those comments, you don't feel like you need to prove yourself to people, but also balance that with humility. Be willing to learn, be willing to admit that you are young and you don't know everything, but that doesn't mean you have to like prove yourself. And then if you are more mature or experienced, instead of hardening yourself to people that are wanting to learn or that are coming into the field, how can you kind of link arms with them and partner with them and kind of approach it as a team together? So I also say, as I was stepping into this, and you know, for many different reasons, but my family members, some friends, they projected some fear and some insecurities onto me of, I don't know if you should do that, that's really risky, what about your retirement, like stuff like that. And you know, those are valid concerns, and they were doing it out of a place of love. And I'm sure many of you in this room who are also choosing a alternative path in life might have had people projecting their opinions on you as well. But don't let those throw you off your path from your calling or your purpose, just because they wouldn't do it as a young professional or a mom or someone who's approaching retirement. That doesn't mean it should stop you from stepping into that calling. And I know if I would have listened to people that were discouraging me, even from a place that meant well, I wouldn't have been able to impact so many different people, hear so many different stories, hug all the people within these walls and the walls of Juniper Lane that are like, I've been looking for something like this. You literally like made my dreams come true. And I'm sure you guys also make such a big difference to people as well, whatever line of work you're in, whether that's financial success and helping them with those dreams, or creative breakthroughs, or just day in and day out work in your family. Like, everyone plays a part in a story, and it's important to step into what you know that calling to be, but from a place, again, of softness and not a feeling like you have to prove yourself and all of that. So the power of softness in work and business, I feel like, is something it's a little taboo to talk about, because as we hear softness, sometimes I feel like it's a gut reaction one or the other. I know when I first heard it, I was always kind of called a softie as a kid, and it was always kind of like a, oh, bless your heart, like that kind of way, which if you know me personally, it's fair, like, but I really had to try to harness that as a strength and as a power, and I encourage you all to do the same if you fall into that boat. But I also want to be clear that I believe there is softness in work, not in lack of it. Like, don't say, oh, like, I'm in my soft era, so like I'm not gonna work today, we're just gonna let like the ease and the flow, right? Like, don't use it as an excuse or a crutch, but instead use it as a way to empower and guide the work that you do. So like I said, for me here, so much has happened in even a short time within these walls, but for me that looks like listening to my clients or my team members, my employees, collaborating with other business owners, building with creativity, going that extra mile, putting myself in people's shoes. When they come in here, they've come from sometimes all over the country. They've brought people from states away to celebrate a wedding dress shopping weekend with them. And I have to remind myself of that when I'm checking my Google Calendar of like, all right, this appointment and that, like, you know, it just can kind of fall into the mundane. And, you know, same for you guys, I'm sure. Like, the work can feel a little monotonous at times, but how can we approach that balance with softness and say, you know, just because it's one more thing on my calendar, this is a weekend or an appointment that's literally going to change someone else's life, and kind of holding that in balance, whether it's you're helping someone find a house or you're helping someone with financial life goals. Like, those are all really big milestones, and not letting that fall into the mundane of like the day-to-day life. So softness is what allows us to honor these moments with empathy and not just efficiency. Kind of takes a step back from the grind and the hustle and everything. So as we approach our life and our work and our businesses this week, and as we go into the holiday season, which can be a very hard time, I want to encourage all of us to approach this with kindness, with grace, with empathy, but mixed with hard work and consistency, and kind of figure out a good balance with all of that. And just make sure you're giving yourself and others grace throughout the process. So if you feel like you're too soft, if you fall into that camp, like I do, let's try to reframe our kindness as an asset and not a weakness. Not everyone has that sixth sense of empathy and able to relate to people. Not everyone's able to kind of extend that compassion instantly, and if you do fall into the other camp, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up for that, but see if you can experiment with small ways where you can lead with empathy and kind of put connection and results on the same playing field. Is there a way that you can put yourself in someone's shoes or extend grace or, I don't know, a discount in my case to someone, instead of being like, nope, that's the policy. Like, trying to just lead from a place of just a little bit of kindness because I feel like that's truly what's helped me play the long game here instead of being black and white with all of my interactions or the policies or how I treat other business owners or employees. It's looking at it through a zoomed out lens a little bit from that place of empathy and softness and going the extra mile and putting myself in others' shoes. So I'll leave you with this closing thought as we go back to our busy lives. There is power in your softness, in being kind, in being loving, and in showing light to others. It may feel opposite to what the world tells us, but I believe softness is long game and ultimate success. It's what creates sustainable businesses, lasting relationships, and meaningful lives. So my invitation to you, whether you're a creative, a small business owner, someone just starting out, lean into your softness and into your authenticity. Don't feel like you have to harden yourself and put up those walls in order to succeed. There's something beautiful from a place of softness, and that's exactly what the world needs.
Yes.
Thank you.
We do have time for a few questions for our speaker, so whatever you've always wanted to know. Cass.
Tell us about your name, Atlas and Ember.
Yes, great question. So, as I mentioned, I was a wedding planner, and this was Atlas and Ember is the name of my wedding planning company first. So I felt like it was a perfect evolution to just bring it back into the wedding space. So I kind of named it with that lens in mind, but Atlas being a guide or a map system, I was guiding them through the planning process, and then Ember being kind of like a spark. So it was like sparks of their love story kind of like connecting, but I feel like that, it still applies here, the sparks of love and guiding them through the wedding dress shopping process. So yeah,
Very cool. Thank you. Yeah, Kathleen.
Where do you get them? And can I come with you?
Yeah. Yes. So it's a slow process to build up. As I mentioned, in Juniper Lane, we were adding slowly until we could take this leap. But I often source at estate sales. That's kind of our main thing because every estate has at least one wedding dress. One estate, there was like 3 generations of women who had lived in the same house, so that one had 3 wedding dresses. But yeah, it's a slow build, and also the community has been great as we're gaining traction. I'll get some emails or phone calls from lovely older ladies in our community because we source from the 1940s through the 80s. That's like our preferred decades, and then we do a few from like the 80s to the 2000s as well. So yeah, they'll reach out and ask if I'm buying, and I say, yep, bring it in, let's see it, let's add it. So, and I just love all the stories that are represented here. So
One more. Yes, please.
From how far do people come? It's really neat that you're the first one and only one in the Mid-Atlantic.
Yes,
so
thank
are
you.
people coming from far and wide?
So I do have a map by the door you can check out on your way. And those represent either where they've come from or where they are getting married at. But a few notable stories. One girl came from Colorado, which was amazing. I will give the caveat, I think it was like her aunt or her mom or someone lived in Northern Virginia, so that was like the home base, but she came there, then came here. And similarly, someone came from Nashville where they had family like in the Northern Virginia area and then made like a girls trip to come down. So yeah.
We'll do one more.
Yes.
Bree's cool with it. I'll share a very cool story.
Oh, yes.
I was the maid of honor in a wedding 2 weeks ago, and the plan for the wedding dress fell through a week before the wedding.
Oh my gosh.
So it was, hectic, and we had one on hold, and she was like, "It's fine. It's a fine dress," and I thought that was unacceptable. So I literally walked into Juniper Lane and was like, "What are you doing right now?" Bree helped me save the wedding, and she looked beautiful and was happy, and we found a really affordable, second-owned dress, and it was perfect.
What a great story to end on. Thank you, everybody.